In the annals of military history, few stories are as remarkable as that of General Thomas Stonewall Jackson, not because of his famous Civil War exploits, but because of a lesser-known incident that would earn him the peculiar distinction of being the general who died twice. This extraordinary tale unfolds during the height of the American Civil War, when communication lines were fragile and the fog of war could turn truth into fiction within hours. The year was 1862, and Confederate General Thomas Jonathan Jackson had already earned his legendary nickname, Stonewall, for his unwavering defense at the First Battle of Bull Run. His tactical brilliance and iron discipline had made him one of the South's most valuable commanders, feared by Union forces and revered by Confederate soldiers. What nobody expected was that a simple communication error would declare him dead long before his actual demise. During the intense fighting in the Shenandoah Valley campaign, General Jackson was leading his troops in what would become known as the Battle of Kernstown. The engagement was fierce, with Confederate and Union forces locked in desperate combat across rolling Virginia hillsides. Artillery shells screamed overhead, while musket fire crackled like deadly thunder through the morning mist. In the chaos of battle, Jackson's aide-de-camp, Captain James Keith Boswell, witnessed what appeared to be his commander falling from his horse after a particularly violent exchange of gunfire. Through the smoke and confusion, Boswell was certain he saw Jackson struck down by enemy fire. The captain, believing his general mortally wounded or killed, immediately dispatched urgent messages to Confederate headquarters in Richmond. The report was devastating. General Jackson, fallen in battle, believed killed by enemy action. Command structure compromised. The message traveled swiftly through Confederate communication lines, reaching the highest levels of military command within hours. President Jefferson Davis received the news with profound sorrow, understanding that the loss of Jackson would be catastrophic for Confederate morale and strategic capabilities. Word of Jackson's death spread like wildfire through both Confederate and Union territories. Richmond newspapers printed somber headlines declaring the fall of the great general. Church bells tolled across the South as citizens mourned their hero. Union commanders, while respectful of a fallen adversary, privately celebrated the elimination of their most formidable opponent in the Eastern Theater. Military historians later noted that Jackson's reported death caused immediate strategic shifts. Union General Nathaniel Banks, who had been cautiously maneuvering against Jackson's forces, suddenly became more aggressive, believing he now faced leaderless Confederate troops. Perceived void in command structure, the news reached Jackson's wife, Mary Anna Morrison Jackson, in Winchester. Devastated by reports of her husband's death, she began making arrangements for his funeral, while struggling with overwhelming grief. Letters of condolence poured in from across the Confederacy, praising Jackson's service and lamenting the tremendous loss to their cause. However, Thomas Jackson was very much alive. What Captain Boswell had witnessed was not his commander's death, but rather Jackson dismounting quickly to avoid enemy fire and taking cover behind a fallen log. In the smoke and chaos of battle, this defensive maneuver had been misinterpreted as Jackson being struck down. For nearly 18 hours, the Confederate States of America mourned their dead hero, while Jackson himself continued commanding his troops, completely unaware of his reported demise. It wasn't until late the following day that accurate communication reached Confederate headquarters. A courier arrived with an updated battle report, signed in Jackson's own distinctive handwriting, causing considerable confusion among military leadership. The verification process was extraordinary. Multiple messengers were dispatched to confirm Jackson's status, each returning with the same incredible news. General Stonewall Jackson was not only alive, but had successfully completed his tactical objectives in the Shenandoah Valley. The dead general had, in fact, achieved another brilliant victory while the Confederate capital planned his memorial service. Remarkably, a similar incident occurred just months later during the Battle of Cedar Mountain. This time, a Confederate telegraph operator, overwhelmed by battlefield casualties and working under extreme pressure, misread a casualty report. The operator incorrectly transcribed Jackson's adjutant wounded, critical. When combined with subsequent communication delays and the natural human tendency to assume the worst during wartime, this error again resulted in premature reports of Jackson's death. Once again, newspapers across the South printed obituaries for their beloved general. This second death was even more widely reported than the first, with international newspapers picking up the story. European military observers who had been closely following American Civil War developments noted the apparent loss of the Confederacy's most innovative tactical commander. The pattern of mourning and resurrection repeated itself with almost theatrical precision. Confederates' morale plummeted, Union forces celebrated, and Jackson's family endured another period of devastating grief, all while the general himself remained actively engaged in military planning, completely oblivious to his reported demise. The tragic irony of Jackson's story becomes apparent when considering his actual death on May 10, 1863, during the Battle of Chancellorsville. Jackson was accidentally shot by his own Confederate troops while conducting a nighttime reconnaissance mission. His men, nervous and trigger-happy in the darkness, mistook their returning commander for enemy cavalry and opened fire. This time, there were no communication errors or misunderstood reports. Jackson was genuinely wounded, and despite initial hopes for recovery, he died 8 days later from pneumonia that developed as a complication of his injuries. The man who had died twice in newspaper reports and military communications had finally succumbed to what history would record as one of the war's most tragic cases of friendly fire. The story of General Jackson's multiple deaths illustrates the crucial importance of accurate military communication and the dangerous consequences of misinformation during wartime. Military historians have studied these incidents extensively, noting how false death reports affected strategic decision-making, troop morale, and public opinion during critical moments of the Civil War. These events also highlight the psychological impact of losing key military leaders during conflict. The immediate strategic changes implemented by both sides upon hearing of Jackson's supposed death demonstrate how individual commanders could influence entire campaigns through their reputation alone. Modern military communication systems were developed partly in response to such historical failures, incorporating multiple verification protocols and redundant reporting structures to prevent similar miscommunications from affecting military operations and public morale today. The general who died twice remains one of the most fascinating footnotes in American military history. The story serves as a reminder that even in war's most serious moments, human error and the limitations of 19th century communication technology could create almost absurd situations where dead men continued fighting battles and living heroes were mourned as martyrs. Thomas Stonewall Jackson's legacy extends far beyond his tactical brilliance and tragic death. His story reminds us that history is often stranger than fiction, and that the fog of war can obscure truth in ways that seem impossible until they actually happen. In an age of instant global communication, Jackson's tale stands as a testament to simpler times when a man could die twice in newspaper headlines, while continuing to live and fight for his beliefs. The general who died twice ultimately died once, but his extraordinary story of premature obituaries and miraculous resurrections continues to captivate military historians and storytellers. More than 150 years after his actual passing, if you found this incredible tale of military miscommunication fascinating, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more untold stories from history. What other historical mysteries would you like us to explore? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest historical adventures. Share this remarkable story with friends who love history. They won't believe a general could actually die twice and live to tell about it.